What is up, everybody in YouTube land? Hope everybody's doing well today. I just wanted to show you guys how to swap a transmission on this Whirlpool stack unit. Okay. This transmission is right here. There's your part number right there. Okay, that's what we're working with. Just so you guys are curious, I've got this this is a vacant apartment, so I've kind of got this set up here in the living room. And I'm going to show you how I take care of this with pulling as little apart as possible. Stay with me, guys. Okay, so I've kind of already completed the first two steps of this. You're going to have an agitator. This one's all disgusting inside with a 7/16 bolt in the center. You pull that off, and then you're going to need this here spanner wrench. I don't know if I have touched on this before. Let's see if that'll focus. It is TB123. There it is, kind of. TB123. Let's see if I can get this to focus. Hang on, I'm not going to waste too much time with this. Anyway, I'll link to this in the description box below. But you're going to need this for the drive bell nut right here. So you're going to take the drive bell nut off. Use a hammer, and then you're going to turn it. It's conventional thread, so you're just going to kind of turn this off and get this off just like this. So there you go, that comes off. And this is all we need to do topside. Okay, so the rest of the stuff is going to be on the machine, underneath the machine. And I'm going to get this propped up. I'm going to do this without taking any of these panels off. Okay, so ordinarily you'd be taking this top off, and then there's a couple of 5/16 screws underneath, and you pull the front off. And you can do it like that if you really want to, and you can start disconnecting your drain pump. But realistically, in the interest of time, it can all be done from underneath. So that's what we're going to do. Stay with me. Alright guys, we're back underneath this machine, and you can see the bottom of the transmission here. Just for full disclosure, what this thing was doing was it was trying to spin and agitate at the same time. Basically, sometimes I get into that kind of a bind, and it actually messed up one of the gears inside the transmission. I'm pretty sure it might have broken the little pawl that holds the neutral drain switch, or the neutral drain portion of the transmission in as well, because I can hear something like marbles rolling around in there. It could just be bad bearings, but I'm not really terribly concerned. We know we need to replace this transmission, so basically, if I can get on my back here, what you're going to do, I can do this one-handed actually. Pop this drain pump off. Okay, there's two little clips. There's one that's a little hard to get to, so excuse me if this angle is a little messed up here. I think I gotta use my other hand for this. Yep, there we go. Okay, and then that drain pump will just pop right off there, and you can kind of just get it out of the way and just kind of do it. Of course, before we mess with any of these connectors too, you want to make sure your machine is unplugged at the back. Obviously this is in a living room, so this thing has been completely disconnected for us so that we know. So that connector, there will be on some of your transmissions, some of the older ones had this motor capacitor over here up on the wire harness, like way up near the back where that pressure tube kind of is. Even above that, they had the capacitor up there, so sometimes you don't have to worry about this, but on this particular one you do. They're both red wires, so you can't really screw up how you put them on. I'm trying to do this with my fingers, so there we go. All right, and then what you do for this little hook right here, for this little wire loom, is you got to make sure you do this. You squeeze the top of it. You can do it with your fingers and just pull that out, and I just kind of root that sort of underneath the machine at the back. Now this is on a dolly too, guys. So so now that that's out of the way, we can hit these 5/16 half-inch bolts. There's 3 of them. There's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. Okay. I believe I also have a drain pump for this thing. I haven't looked in my bag of parts. I might have decided to put a drain pump on this thing because it's in a college sort of rent house, so you never really know what these things will swallow. And you can see that this is all plastic, and there is a seal right back here, actually. It'll focus, yeah. Right back here. I don't see any leaks, but there'll be kind of black streaks on the backs of these drain pumps, and they'll actually leak a little bit. They don't leak a lot. This here's your drive coupling. I'm also replacing this as well. This is actually what couples the motor to the transmission. So we're actually replacing this as well, just for a cheap insurance type thing while we're in here. So you can see also the part number is stamped on the bottom of the transmission. Actually, it's cast into it. It's not stamped, it's cast into it. And just kind of a quick aside, anytime you see this FSP logo here, I know it's upside down, but it will say FSP, which is Factory Service Parts for Whirlpool. Your part number will be somewhere near that, okay? And that goes for pretty much every single Whirlpool part they make. You can't really see it here, but there's an FSP logo on the other side of this tag, actually, and the motor part number is actually in this box right here, if you're ever interested. But usually, guys, this is an uncommon repair. We don't usually do too many of these, just for the sole fact that it usually prices somebody out of a machine, but $650 on a $1,200 stacker, it might make sense to somebody. So we'll get on with it here. I will disconnect these, and I'll be back with you. Alright, now you guys get to watch me wrestle here. Sorry about the angle. It's not ideal, but I'll try to do this to where you guys can see as much as possible. And of course, my melon is going to be in the way of this, and I may have to get in the way. And see, they're not on that much. You can do this with basic hand tools. I like to use an impact because it's just quicker. And now, okay, when you're on the last bolt, you're going to want to put a hand on it, because now you're bearing the weight of it. Okay, and now we'll see that it's loose. Just got to make sure that that comes out of there all right. That's going to slide down for us. Kind of supported as it comes. And there we go. Just like that. Transmission and clutch are out. Now that clutch doesn't look too bad. This is a relatively new machine, so I'm not replacing the clutch. I am replacing the drive coupling. And that's pretty much it. The clutch seemed to be working okay. It spins out just fine. So we're not going to mess with that. Let's see. So basically, if you're doing a clutch, we want to pull this off. And flat blade. Okay, and you want to take a flat blade and just kind of work it in there. This is really hard to do one-handed, guys. Hold on just a sec. Alright, be right back with you. Just needed 2 hands for that last bit. So we're gonna pull that out. Okay, first thing is this little clip. That guy comes out, so we're gonna put him over here with the washer. And then there's another ring in here. I don't know if if you guys can see this, but usually what I do, okay. Sometimes you got to start at one end and work your way around, but that'll pop up there. It's not going anywhere because you've got this shaft in there as well. Okay, now when you rock this off, you'll pull that right off. Okay, what you want to do is make sure that this little plastic guy underneath comes out with that. Okay, we're swapping that over. Now the motor, take that last clip off right there. But the motor, there's these 2 1/4-inch screws right here. So we're going to take those out. And I'm just going to do it, since I don't want to find my 1/4-inch bit, I'll use my driver. Take that out. Take that out. And of course, we want to keep track of these things, so the clutch makes a great holder for those. Now, and yes, I'm using a shorty flat blade because I lost my other one. Now, if you're ever changing a motor, this is another pro tip for these things. If you're ever changing this motor out, leave the top one in. I don't really have to worry about it dropping here because it's in an environment where it really doesn't matter. It's not going to fall that far. But disconnect this top one last inside the machine here. So we're just going to grab this bottom one right here. Sorry about it, the close-up. Need one hand. Okay, that's popped off. So we're going to set those aside and that one aside. Okay, and that motor will just rock out of where it's hanging out. Oops. And make sure you don't mess anything up in the motor when you're taking it off. Okay, and it'll come with half the drive coupling, and then half will be on here. So now I'm only really concerned with getting this 1/2 off of it because we're going to replace this. Now, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take my big old channel locks. And sometimes these can be a little finicky, guys. But this is what we're doing. I'll take the pair of channel locks, and it really doesn't matter if you break the old one, of course. Again, I really apologize for the messed up camera angles and all that junk. Trying to do this. Boy, this sucks one-handed. Well, you get the idea. I'm just going to take this off. I need 2 hands. So I'm going to take this off, and we'll get the new transmission underneath here. I think I have to swap these drive plates too. These are just 1/2 inch here, and you might have to swap this plate as well. Usually you have to. So I'll be right back with you guys. Wanted to give you guys a pro tip about these drive couplings. And what I usually do is I'll take just a 1/2 inch socket right here, and I will put it over the sleeve on these. Now what's interesting is I'm only swapping half of the drive coupling out because new transmission comes with one. So didn't realize that. They never, as far as I recall, I don't think they used to come like that, but it's been years since I've gotten a new one, so I just didn't remember. So anywho, I just take that socket and then I just knock it with a hammer. Get this oriented so you guys can, don't look at my shoe. You don't need to look at my shoe. You need to look at the motor. That was a pain. There we go. Alright. And now I got to use channel locks for this because I don't have my hammer. But we'll just knock that on. Right about until that shaft is flush to the end. Right tool for the job. That's about good. So right until it's almost about flush with that end, that's probably going to be fine. As long as the majority of that is on there, then you're good. And you've got a little rubber piece in the bag still with half of it in there. This actually goes between these two and is what couples the two of these together. You can see the kind of teardrop shape and the teardrop shape of those. So that's pretty much it, how a drive coupling works in these things. Be back with you when I get everything assembled. Guys, that is it. We've got this assembly back together. One little note, I put these screws back in. It's up to you whether you do or not. I don't really care. Well, I don't, not that I don't really care. Gosh, I can't even think today. I've seen some schools of thought that say you don't have to put these back in. I've done it both ways. I've left them off and put them back in. My school of thought, or my thinking, revolves around the use that I know this machine is going to get in a rental application, okay? You've got to take into account the usage that the machine is going to get, and you, after a while, develop a feel of what you think you need for that usage. And I just think that these are just added security in case it gets to rocking and rolling real hard for these things not to pop out. So you definitely don't want your motor becoming detached. That would be bad news. One other thing of note before I get to installing this mess, make sure you keep the transmission, any work you're doing on this transmission, whether you're putting the clutch back on, whether you're, putting the, I did have to swap this plate over. You guys might have seen the bag of the new transmission versus the old one and some of the other shots, but I did have to swap this piece. When you're doing any of that kind of work, keep this upright or as upright as possible. The seal should hold, but you don't want to take the chance to get oil all over your customer's floor or anything like that. Also, don't slide it on the floor, especially with, this is linoleum, but if you've got wood floors or anything that you're dealing with, don't slide it around on the floor. Oil can also come out the hole that's underneath this clutch as well if that seal is bad. Now, that said, it should hold it in, but why take the chance, okay? So without further ado, we'll set you up here and I'll get to wrestling this bloody thing here. Oh, now, when you stab these things, it's kind of like a clutch. This has got to go in here, and all the junk, the tub and everything like that has got to line up, and it can be a bit of a wrestling match to get this in. So we'll see if we can do this just like this. And you want to keep one of these bolts handy while you're stabbing this thing. And I don't know how much you guys can see. Let me get this angled right here. That ought to be somewhat okay. So this is kind of at a 45-degree angle. And we put our peg in there. And I'm just going to hold a foot behind the wheel of the dolly. Just push that up in, just like that. Keep that drain pump out of the way. Use a hand, grab a bolt. Okay, and all you need is a few threads, and that'll hang out there. And you'll feel it. You'll feel this thing hit home when it does. It hasn't quite. There it is. And the last one, right here. And just a few threads. Okay. Okay, and now we can switch this around. There it goes. Now see that popped right in? Alright. That's about it, guys. Nothing broken. I'll give that one another little blast. A couple quick blasts. And then we can reattach our drain pump. And again, this has got a hole. Now another thing of note, I had the 394 drain pump. I needed the 862 or 892 or whatever the hell it is with this bigger outlet. You run into that. Being that, like I said, we were looking for whether this has leaked. I've actually pulled it off and looked inside it, and it looks fine inside. So being that this machine is not that old, like I said, it's that's all there is to it. So we're just gonna keep this drain pump on here and hope for the best. We'll just take that old drain pump off the bill. Not a big deal. And then you gotta get your shaft to line up just right. Excuse me while I fiddle around with this. Like I said, this is tough to do one-handed, so. There we go. Okay, almost. Really tough to do one-handed, guys. Now, of course, I'm going the way that's spinning the whole tub, so that's okay. Now, what you got to take into account too is you'll see these little holes for the feet. That pump has got to sit down in those holes. Okay, so make sure when you're seating these drain pumps that they fit right in those holes. Very, very important. Okay, or else this thing is just gonna it'll break and it'll crack, and as you can see, it's only plastic. So we're gonna put these on. We'll get this machine back upright so I can get off my back, and we'll just pop those clips on like I showed you to begin with. It doesn't really matter, obviously, the order that you put them on in. You're gonna have to feel around on the top. It's really something I can't really show you on camera, at least not with this camera. And then we'll get this thing upright and we'll finish the job up. Be back. Just gonna go through the last few steps of this with you guys. What you're gonna do next is take your dry bell nut. You're gonna make sure everything is through here, of course. It's gonna be pretty self-explanatory. And we're just gonna thread this on. Just like that, as tight as it'll go behind. And then you're going to want to go as tight as it'll go with this guy. And gem box. What's going on, everybody? I just wanted to tell you that I didn't realize in this video that I had actually missed the last part of the last section of this transmission swap. What you would have wanted to do is take that TB123A, give it a couple of good whacks with a hammer until it's tight. Usually I go until it just won't turn anymore with either channel locks or a hammer. Right tool for the job, like I said earlier in the video. The other thing that you're going to want to do is put your agitator back on. It just splines onto the top of where those splines are on that top of that transmission there, and just run that down tight with a 7/16 ratchet or an impact like I had in my case, and that should take care of you. So anyway, I just had to interject with this little last bit, and let's continue on with the video. Thanks. There you guys have a full transmission swap. on this big old stack unit here. All that's left to do is plug it in, install it, test it, and all that. And that's not part of this video, guys. Actually, they do that here. I don't even have to do that. So everything is good there. We're going to pack up. We're going to get out of here. Call this job done. Again, thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe down below. I sure would appreciate it. And I will catch you guys on the next episode. Thanks for watching, guys.